Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic This Week in SaaS. It's episode 679. My normal co-hosts have deserted me, tribe, but we've got an old friend of the show returning to the WP-Tonic interview show. I've got my close friend and colleague, John Locke, joining us. We also got a fantastic guest. We got Nick Amabile. Hopefully I haven't butchered his name. He's the founder of Das42. We're going to be talking about all things technology around data, Google Analytics, Snowflake. I have no idea what that is, but Nick's going to be telling us. It sounds a bit dry, but Nick knows how to explain this in a way that's entertaining. And take it from me, tribe, it's really, really important. John, can you quickly introduce yourself to the tribe, John?
Yeah, John from Lockdown SEO, and we help manufacturing and industrial companies with search engine optimization.
That's great. And Nick, can you give us a quick 10-second intro?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having me, John and Jonathan. So yeah, I'm Nick. I'm the CEO at Das42. Das42 is a boutique data and analytics consulting firm, and we help everyone from big Fortune 500 companies all the way down to small startups and everyone in between, make business value out of their data and analytics. So excited to be here today to chat more about it.
That's great, Nick. Before we go into the real core of this interview, I've got a quick message from our major sponsor, Castos. We'll be back in a few moments. We're coming back. And by the way, if Castos has got a great special offer for you, the tribe, plus some of the other sponsors, plus I've got a long list of plugin recommendations, services, everything that you might find useful as a power user or agency owner. To get all these goodies, only thing you have to do is go over to WP-Tonic/recommendations, and it's all there for you. So, Nick, can you go into some background about yourself, why you started Das42? What was the trigger for the madness, Nick? Why did you decide to go into the crazy world of Google Analytics and data in general?
Well, yeah, sometimes I ask myself that,
I bet you do.
Like, what am I doing,
I do it every day. John will testify for that.
No, so I've always, kind of had an interest in quantitative things, and I went to school for economics, but sort of right before I started Das42, I was most recently the head of business intelligence at Jet.com, which is a big e-commerce company that got sold to Walmart. And prior to that, I was working in senior analytics roles at Etsy. And so, I think I was a little bit ahead of the curve on a lot of these kind of new big data technologies and analytics kind of methodologies. And actually, when I was leaving Jet, I went to go interview at a bunch of tech companies here in New York, where I live. And they all wanted me to basically standardize their metrics and KPIs, set up their data platforms. And I was like, whoa, I just kind of did this a few times at other companies. And if everyone's asking me to do this, maybe there's something here. So I basically just started out to, do my own work and work from home and have a lifestyle business. But our second customer ended up being Amazon. And so we quickly realized we were destined for bigger and better things. And so that's where we are today. We're about 85 people, mostly based in New York and Denver, private equity backed now. And things are going well. We're having fun.
So the empire is growing, Nick.
That's right.
You look very relaxed and calm.
Well,
There we go. Over to you, John. Oh,
I couldn't mute. I was on mute. So with Snowflake, that's a very interesting product that. Tell me a little bit more about that and how it helps enterprise companies with data analytics.
Yeah, it's a good question. Jonathan, you mentioned you didn't know Snowflake. It's kind of, you think of Snowflake as just a big database, right? So you're probably familiar with like MySQL and Postgres and things like that. But Snowflake is basically a cloud data warehouse, as we call it. And that's where we put, all the different data sets that an enterprise has, in one place. And so you could think about, you have, like, let's say Google Analytics data talks about all the things that users do on your website. You might have other operational data, like if you're an e-commerce or sort of other company, you might have supply chain data or logistics type data, shipments and things like that. Of course, you're going to have orders coming from, whether you're using Shopify or something else, right? It's all coming into Snowflake. And then we can basically, join that data together in a way that helps companies get a holistic picture of their business. So now I can see, okay, where did my visitors come to on the web, or where do they come from on the website? What do they do? What do they purchase? And basically, how much money did it cost me to, ship it and pack it? And, how much money did I make at the end of the day? So that's really what we do. And Snowflake allows us to do that in a way that's, cloud-based, modern, scalable, flexible, all that good stuff. So anyway, it's just one of the kind of tools in the tool chest. But, one of the things that I think we've seen be successful is really focusing not on the technology, but more on the business problems and the business questions. So, there's lots of different ways to skin the cat, right? Snowflake is only one technology. There's other technologies from Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud that are very similar. But it's really about thinking through what are the key business questions that you're trying to answer. And then that's where we help our customers at Das42. We help them work backwards from those questions to actually implement a technical solution that'll give them kind of what they're looking for.
So to expand on that really quick, basically an analytics product like that, data warehousing as a service, reveals the data that allows you to ask the questions that allows them to run a business more efficiently.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So all that comes together in one place. And then, for example, you might want to look at orders by category or orders by marketing channel. And so you kind of start to slice and dice all your data. And Snowflake basically allows us to do that on very large data sets, but also very small data sets too. It's of course, scalable. And it's, these days with the cloud, it's about pay for what you use. So if you only use it a little bit, you only pay a little bit. Use it a lot, you're going to pay a lot. But yeah, absolutely right. It's getting all the data in one place to create that holistic picture of your business.
So, Nick, the impression I'm getting, and I'm sure this is very simplistic because I'm a very simplistic man, Nick, is that Snowflake is like, it's kind of putting Google Analytics on steroids. It's kind of answering the kind of questions that Google Analytics can't ask in that whole business. Normally a lot of questions are produced by a big dive in Google Analytics, but there's no way to answer them normally in a cost base that's possible. And Snowflake, that's the impression I was getting. Am I on the right track, Nick?
Yeah, that's right. I think, so Google Analytics will take, a lot of the data that you have, on your website. So like what people are doing, what people are clicking on, marketing channels, ad campaigns, things like that. A lot of times, though, you want to take that data and join it with other data sets that might be not in Google Analytics, right? You might have other types of customer data or product data or things like that might not be in there. And so essentially, we take the data from Google Analytics as one example, we put it into Snowflake, and we put a whole bunch of additional data sets in there so we can create even more richer or customized type analytics. And so to your point, like a lot of times, we do work with smaller companies. And Google Analytics works just fine for them because they have, smaller sets of data. They have fewer sets of data as well. And, they can basically get what they need out of Google Analytics. But once you start to grow to a certain size, you have lots of different data sets that you need to centralize and kind of mash together, if you will.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of linked to our next question. Because I've noticed with some of the larger clients and clients in general, on this podcast, Nick, we have a focus on the professional WordPress user, developer, digital agency owner, power user, and also the bootstrap SaaS community. That's our focus. And I think we've all, John, myself, we're all been involved in projects or clients on long-term retainers, and they've got big ideas and they really want to do a big dive on analytical data, on Google Analytics and other products, and they've failed to produce any sizable, measurable return on investment in any shape or form. If you've got any insights of why, do you agree what I've just said, and what gives some insights on a couple of things why that happens, basically?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I think I've seen some statistics that, I don't know, some vast majority of data projects end up failing because for one reason or another. And I think part of it is actually thinking about, like I mentioned before, focusing on the technology first rather than the business questions. So to your point, if you're just like, hey, we should implement this or we should implement that technology, without having that context around the business questions that you're trying to answer, then it's very difficult to actually build a solution that's going to make sense. But to your point, like I think there are lots of different ways to accomplish this, and thinking about how much are you going to spend. There's obviously we work with very large customers that have very large budgets, but trying to figure out ways that are what I would say kind of quick and dirty, if you will. A lot of times spreadsheets work really well, right? Like everyone still uses spreadsheets today, right? Even the big companies that we work with. And that works really well for a lot of folks. So I think, again, just focusing first and foremost on the business questions, like, hey, I want to understand my supply chain better. And I want to, I don't know, think about, whether I should use FedEx for shipping or UPS for shipping, just like some basic stuff like that, right? Where you're like, that's the question that I want to answer. Now we start to figure out how to answer it.
So just a quick follow-through question before we go for our break. I'm kind of basing it because we do a fair bit of work around marketing automation with clients, and notice that a lot of them have got very big ideas, and they've had multiple attempts at marketing automation, and we kind of log into Active Campaign, and they've got marketing automatizations everywhere. They're so complicated that we have to charge them a considerable sum of money just to work out what's going on. And there's no notes, there's no records. Is that one of the key things about when you get called in your team? Is it generally that you can give some focus about which areas they should start with? And is it generally a bit similar to what I've outlined with marketing automation? They've had multiple attempts and it's all over the place. Am I on the right track?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, a lot of our customers, like you said, they have all kinds of things that they could do, right? And so helping, Das42, we help our customers think through what they should do and kind of using our industry expertise to figure out how to actually then execute it, and saying, hey, we've seen this be successful in the past. We think this will be successful for you guys. And in this case, right, I mean, you think about marketing optimization, you're kind of thinking through, how much does it cost to acquire a customer and how much do I get from that customer, right? And so having a very clear understanding of those kind of key metrics is very important. And without kind of having the view of those metrics, it's going to be difficult to really figure out what optimization really means to you in your business and your context.
That's great. I think we're going to go for our break. We'll be back. We're going to be delving more in this fascinating world of data. We'll be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. We've had a bit of a dive in the world of data. If you want to get a fantastic newsletter written by me, the editorial is written by me, plus all the leading stories that we discussed during the Friday Roundtable show, the outrageous Friday Roundtable show. You can get that all free by signing up on the WP-Tonic website. And you do that, tribe, by going to WP-Tonic newsletter and sign up, and you get my thoughts, you get the recommendations of the panel, plus all the leading stories. If you had missed our Friday show, all sent to your inbox. What more could you ask for? So Nick, it's a bit dull. I would imagine the other factor is let's do a kind of focus around the bootstrap the agency. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they've got clients. They built a relationship with them. Let's say if it's an agency, and then you also got the startup. They've got like some investment, and the investors are asking for more data. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they want to know what's going on in the quarterly report that
Sure.
got to send out to the investors, right? So you got the agency and you got the bootstrappers, right? It's a bit daunting, all this, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
where do they start? Where do they start on this windy road?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and to your point, I agree. It is very, very daunting. I think what I would suggest, and this is what we do, whether it's a huge Fortune 500 client or a very small startup that we work with, is we pick one very important use case for the company and try to deliver on that very quickly, to deliver some value. Because I think a lot of people take a boil the ocean approach. It's kind of like all or nothing. I have all these ideas. I want to do it all. So let's figure out how we can do it all first, right? And that's kind of more the waterfall type approach almost, right? Where you're kind of planning it out very sequentially and things like that. What we're trying to do is take more of an agile approach, right? Identify one or two things that are really critical and core to your business. You're not going to be able to do it all, and just make sure that you kind of knock that one out of the park. And so for a SaaS startup, it could be something like weekly or monthly active users or ARR, right? Maybe that's something that the investors are really asking about. So you take a very hypercritical view on that, let's say it's ARR, and let's go figure out that, right? Like, what are the data sources that are feeding into ARR? What do we define it? Because that's another thing that a lot of companies don't think about, is like, if I said to you ARR, that's going to mean something different than maybe what I intended it to mean. So we got to make sure that the definitions are all the same. And like you said, you want to make sure that that's written down. We want to understand, like, if we go back to this report in 6 months, we want to make sure that we understand what it means and how we did it and how we calculated things. So, when you think about much larger data projects, that's where we come into things like data governance and, data quality. And so there's a lot of other things that have to happen to make a data project successful. So it's not just, hey, let's implement Snowflake or Google Analytics or any other technology. Think about this whole thing, but do it for one small piece first and get some momentum from there. Get people excited, right? And that's how you build value.
So I think you're talking about getting a quick win.
That's right.
Under
Absolutely.
the belt,
100%.
really.
That's right.
Because I agree that they tend. Yeah, there's okay having a broad strategy, but if you're getting into this, you want something that's obtainable reasonably quickly. Over to you, John.
Right. To expand on what you're just talking about, what are some things that people would want to do to start a successful data program?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like I said before, I think, it depends on kind of where you're at in your kind of company's journey, right? And kind of what your business goals are. So I'm going to give you the consulting answer, which is it depends, right? But I think, typically when we set up, like, let's say we have a VC funded startup that's maybe 200 or 300 people. So, you can kind of get an idea of the journey, right? If you're starting out below that, probably Google Analytics free version, spreadsheets, that kind of stuff is still working for you. I think it starts to break down more around like 200, 300 person companies those kind of systems start to break down. And if we're coming into a company like that, we would put in place something like a data warehouse, we talked about Snowflake before. We'd put into place maybe a business intelligence tool like a Tableau or a Looker, so that folks can easily ask and answer their own questions. It starts to get a little bit more complicated from there, but basically what I'm saying is, I think, if you have some basic analytics, if you have your sort of Google Analytics or website analytics, if you have some operational data coming from, your WordPress backend, for example, right? You can download that data, kind of mash it up with your Google Analytics and do some stuff in spreadsheets. And that works really well. I mean, it doesn't have to be complicated. The goal is, like we talked about just a second ago, is to get a quick win and deliver some value for your business rather than sort of building this huge data platform, which only makes sense in certain cases.
All right. So where do you think Google's the main tool, love it or hate it, is Google Analytics. It's the big gorilla that dominates. Your first introduction into web-based analytical tools. Where do you think Google's taking it, or if they know where they're taking Google Analytics in the next 12, 18 months? You got any insights, any little whispers that have been in your ear about any plans they've got?
I mean, I wouldn't be the person to predict, Google and what they're going to do. You never know, right? Who's to say? But
it's like the Oracle of Greece.
Yeah, that's right. So whatever I'm going to say is going to be taken with a grain of salt here. But I think they are trying to make it a much. There's obviously kind of the sort of what I would call the free version of Google Analytics, which is great, and they've really built out a lot of different. I've been using Google Analytics. Geez, I don't even know, since like 2008 or something like that, even before that. So for over that period of time, the product has come a long way. And now you're right, Jonathan, you can do a whole ton of stuff in there now that you couldn't before. Assuming that you kind of have all your goals set up correctly, all your, sort of metadata and things like that set up correctly, then there's a lot you can do there. And they've really made it, of course, for Google, they've made it to integrate really well with like AdWords and the other ad products that they offer, of course. But now I think, seeing Google Analytics, we actually see a lot of larger companies going for the Google Analytics 360, the kind of premium version of Google Analytics, which allows you all the detailed unsampled data coming out of Google Analytics, which is very important for larger kind of use cases. And then Data Studio, which is a new Google product, allows you to actually create some customized reports, I believe, in Google Analytics based on the data coming out of that. So they're trying to integrate it more with other products. Is kind of, I think, the long story short of it, and trying to make that data not just accessible in the Google Analytics interface, but make it accessible through other Google Cloud tools.
Yeah, well, I'm just because we kind of in this interview, I knew it was going to happen. We've touched every. I'm losing track now. I apologise. Where was I going with this? Well, we've introduced every key like Google Analytics, artificial intelligence, all the buzzwords. That's it.
Yeah,
we've touched every buzzword in the thing. So. Have you got any insight before we wrap up the podcast part of the show about what are some of the first steps you can do that get some real, if you had a client coming to you and it was the type of client you wanted, what are some of the first things based on your experience, they should be focusing on that would get them the best results?
Yeah, it's a good question. Again, slightly depends, but I can think of a couple different ideas. And how about that? It could be relevant to different segments.
I know these are generalities, but they're based on your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we talked about kind of, maybe the sort of bootstrap SaaS company, they're looking at probably marketing, customer acquisition. Those are kind of the key things, right? So you want to understand, which channels are working, which channels are not. And to be able to do that, like we just talked about, having, your Google Analytics or whatever web analytics tool that you're using, have it sort of set up in a way that'll allow you to say, okay, somebody came from this channel, they downloaded a white paper, they came back, 6 months later, and then they signed up for the free version, and then they were there for the free version for 3 months and then got to the paid version, right? So you want to understand that customer journey, because customer acquisition for most small companies and startups are like, that's the critical thing. And understanding kind of what messages are resonating, right? Understanding, is this type of content resonating for my customers versus this type of content? So, the email campaigns, understanding how those are working. So you can kind of think of a lot of different things just off the top of my head here that might make sense. But I think focusing first and foremost on customer acquisition, you're not going to go wrong for almost any type of company, whether you're B2B or B2C. That's the lifeblood of the game here. So.
That's great. I think we're going to wrap up the podcast part of the show. We're going to continue the conversation. I'm going to ask Nick about his. Can you give any advice to the WordPress agency owner trying to get more larger clients about how he had to change his own mindset from the corporate world to running his own start up his own business, what some of the things he's learned. I'm sure it's going to be a fascinating discussion. You can watch the whole interview plus the bonus content on the WP-Tonic YouTube channel. Go there, watch it. We've got fantastic resources on there. Subscribe, support the channel and the podcast. It's much appreciated. So, Nick, what's the best way for people to find out more about you, your company, and what you're up to?
Sure. Yeah, you can just check us out at das42.com, das42.com, and my email is just nick@das42.com. So certainly happy to answer any questions or follow-ups that folks have, and come check us out.
And what's the best way for people to find out more about you and you're up to, John? John has a fantastic YouTube channel. He's producing fantastic content about SEO almost, I won't say every day, but you churn out a lot, don't you, John?
Yeah, I try and keep it regular. You can find me at lockdownseo.com, and then on the socials and YouTube, it's just Lockdown SEO everywhere you go. So
it's great.
How do people find out about you, Jonathan?
Well, just go to WP-Tonic if you're into building a membership or you want to build a internal training platform. We're the people to help you. Plus, we do a number of podcasts around the WordPress technology SaaS area. Go to YouTube, look at under WP-Tonic. You find all the great free content that you can listen to and watch. We will be back next week for another great interview in the world of WordPress and SaaS. Remember to watch the rest of the interview on our YouTube channel. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye. So, Nick, you know, I have a lot of friends, a lot of people that have built up a pretty good agency. They kind of built it up from the small clients to medium clients, and they want to migrate into larger clients. But what helped them get small to medium clients doesn't seem to be working with the larger clients. You got any insights? Would you agree with that? And if you've got any insights or tips about how they might do better in attracting some larger clients?
Yeah, it's a good question. And yeah, I mean, first off, I would agree with that sentiment that it is pretty difficult, I think, to make that transition. And, all I can offer is just sort of my own personal journey, and then, see what that, that's just one example. This is, not to say that it's instructive for everybody, but I mean, look, I think, I've sort of thought that it's difficult to get enterprise clients unless you have other enterprise clients, which creates this chicken and an egg type situation, right?
Most fundamental, difficult or things that you need to do are those kind of chicken and egg problems,
Yep.
aren't they?
Yep. So it's no different here, and I think, we certainly probably, I think it depends on kind of your services offering too, right? Like, is this something that's really geared towards enterprise customers and understanding kind of your ideal customer profile? For us, we were kind of like, okay, let's target more of like the Accenture and sort of the KPMG and Deloitte type model as a consulting firm. And that's what we were sort of aiming for. But, we grew our business through partnerships, and that's been hugely successful for us. And up until, for about 4 or 5 years, we were bootstrapped entirely. And so we got some outside funding just last year. But our partners really gave us our first customers and eventually gave us our first kind of enterprise level customers. And I think there's a lot of just us being at the right time at the right place. When we got Amazon as a customer, my firm was 2 people. And these days, I think if one of our partners had an Amazon type project, they wouldn't give it to a 2-person firm because the market's just so mature in our kind of data analytics space at this point. So it really kind of depends. Like I said, it's a lot of us. For us, it was timing, a little bit of luck, but I was a known entity in the community. I had worked with a lot of our partners as a customer. So like our initial partner was Looker, which is a business intelligence tool that got acquired by Google Cloud. But I had worked with a number of the Looker folks as a customer, first at Etsy and then at Jet. So I got to know a lot of their executive team. They understood that I was able to sort of implement these technology solutions within these customers And then when I started my own firm, I was just like, hey, I'm thinking about doing Looker Consulting, and is that a thing?
I think what you're saying is that obviously you utilize your personal business relationships, and people are listening to this are thinking, well, that's great for Jonathan and Nick to say that, but the point is I don't have those. What I would say, and I just want to see if you agree with this, Nick, or you got your own spin on it, is that's obviously true, but two ways that I would suggest that maybe you get around that problem, that chicken and egg problem, that you don't have those relationships that you had built up, is nicheization, finding a real niche. And secondly, becoming what I call a thought leader online, is producing content, answering questions, doing a dive through SEO, not the traditional way of getting somebody to a website and purchasing a service or a product, but doing that SEO dive to see the questions and problems people are having, and then becoming a clear thought leader in that area. What do you think of the two things I've outlined there?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think the sort of specialization, the focus, that's really, really critical, I'd say. I mean, for us, we were just a Looker consulting firm first. And so like that was, our clear partner. And that's how we were one of the first out there, really. I mean, it's again, kind of right time, right place, but we were really focused and we were differentiated from all these other firms, in the marketplace. And then I think, to the thought leadership angle, yeah, I mean, absolutely. We still do, we do thought leadership today. I mean, that's what partly why I'm here, right? Of course. But I think that, having a message around some sort of niche or a unique point of view, I'd say, is kind of the way that we like to say it. We like to be very opinionated in the things that we talk about. I think a lot of consulting firms in our space are just kind of like, we'll do whatever the customer wants kind of thing. But, we have a clear picture of what we want to do for the customer. And we're very, opinionated and articulate about that. And that flows through to our thought leadership content and all the other work that we do for our customers. So to your point, I agree. I definitely agree with that.
Oh, over to you, John.
So a lot of agencies or people that are working with analytics, they might be helping their clients to grow in order to grow their agency. And like you said, like when you first started, you were a couple people. But for agencies and consultancies that are still small, what are some things that they should be looking out for when it's related to data analytics that would help their customers and their clients grow?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think, for us, we've really been focused on data and analytics, but I think there are lots of different agencies, for example, that are doing marketing kind of agencies, right? Like that's a clear idea where data and analytics clearly plays a role there, right? So being able to build up your competency in that, to be able to, like I said, part of it is it's more than just like reports. I guess I kind of want to stress that, right? It's not just about, hey, we ran a campaign for you and here's the report. It's being much more prescriptive with your customers to say, here's what I think you should do. Here's what we've seen work at other customers or whatever it is, providing that additional value add. And I mean, data and analytics and technology are really just a means to an end, right? Someone's trying to achieve something in their business, whether it's more customers, new products, new markets, whatever it is. So from our perspective, we call ourselves a business consulting firm, not an IT services firm, because we're helping our customers solve business problems. And I think, again, being prescriptive, understanding the business context that your customers are operating in, will go a long way to show, your value add beyond just, hey, I ran this marketing campaign and here's a report.
That's great. What was obviously, like you said in the podcast part of the show, you had extensive experience with Jet and Etsy, but then you started on your own. Obviously, we've just met, but I get the impression that you're highly capable. But it's a big change in culture and how you do. What are some of the key things that, if you could go back and tell consult yourself, What would be one or two things you would have told yourself?
Well, I mean, I got some good advice, when I was first starting out that I'll share here, probably more so than any advice that I'll have for myself, because there are other people smarter than me out there. But one of the things when I was first starting out, I think somebody asked me, how long do you think it'll take to start, kind of being cash flow positive? I mean, because first when you start out a business, you're kind of, living off savings and fumes and trying to bootstrap a business, right? And I was like, it'll probably take 6 months. And, this guy who had started multiple very successful businesses was like, whatever it is, like multiply it by 3. It's going to take you, a year plus before you really hit your stride. And so, I mean, on the one hand, you kind of have to have a little bit of that optimism and naivety, right, to be able to get out there. If you thought it was going to take 18 months before you started making money, then you probably wouldn't do it. But it was good advice nonetheless. And so when you started to, when I started to get to 6 to 12 months in, I knew that I was still on the path, right? Like I wasn't just saying, hey, well, man, it's not working just yet, right? It took some more time, and I was like, keep giving myself time, keep going after it. So, and I think the other thing too is just like for me, I love doing data and analytics stuff. I've been in this industry for 15 plus years, so even if it wasn't a big company, it was just still me and my original co-founder, hanging out, doing some work that we thought was fun and working with some interesting customers. It would have been fun. So for me, like my goal was always just to make a living doing it on my own. That's success right there, right? So there's a lot of people out there. We were just talking about how do you get enterprise customers, right? Maybe you don't need enterprise customers. Are you able to, make a living doing what you love and coming into work every day, working from home, doing your own thing, being your own boss? Like that's huge to me, and that's success. So anyway, I think kind of managing those expectations and figuring out like what are your personal goals for starting this agency or starting this business. That's important as well.
So, what are the plans for Das42? Are you going to go down the Moss route where it's going to be a service base, but you have a product? Are you planning to go down the productized service route like Moss? Rick Raskin, he's a friend of the show. He's come on the show a few times. Are you planning to go down that route where you offer kind of productized service, or is it just to build out your resources around what your agency company provides?
Yeah, it's more the latter. So I know it's a lot of folks out there have had success kind of having consulting projects to really bootstrap and kind of fund their product development and things like that, and that's worked out really well. I think for me, I've realized that I'm not the best sort of software engineer product person out there, right? So that's not my skill set. That's not my strength. So for me, I think there's a gap in the industry, the data analytics consulting services industry. I mean, there's great technology out there, right, in data and analytics, and that's not the problem. It's more around the people aspect of it, the process, the organizational design, data governance, figuring out what to work on, right, all those kind of things that we've just been talking about for the last half hour or so. So I think there's an opportunity for us to grow a really large consulting firm around data and analytics and modern data and analytics specifically, because a lot of the traditional consulting firms like your Accentures, those folks are still focusing on some legacy technology. They're still working with legacy tools. They're not making the investments. And so, I think there's an opening for us to sort of grow what we're calling a scaled boutique, 500 to 1,000 person company that does what we do. And it would still be, services based and, just basically trying to double down. That's been my other strategy in growing my business, has been to, take what's working and double down rather than pivot, right? So if it's working, why change it, right?
No, just one last question, because I know you're busy. Where do you see, because obviously with WP-Tonic, I've got a passion and focus around education and around what I call e-learning, training. Where do you, as part of your consultancy, is there a lot of it also, or increasingly, or do you see opportunities? Is it consultancy training combining more about you have to provide resources, and how important is the training resources in your own business scene?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's two ways that I can answer that question. One, internally at Das42, training is hugely important. I mean, we have we hired just, I think, 20 people this year so far, and we're only in March, right? But those folks are pretty new to the data and analytics industry, right? So we got to train them up on all the things that they need to know to be successful on our projects. So that's super important for us and for our customers. When we go, let's say we implement Snowflake and this wonderful data platform and get them all their analytics and things that they need, it's going to fail without having proper training and enablement and sort of, what we would call data literacy and data culture. So those are all like the people and process aspects of it. And so, especially when we're talking about new tools, like the way that we actually go into our customers, we oftentimes do bring in new software tools, which means that there's new ways of working for people. And they absolutely need to be trained on those tools, and they need to be trained, how to read and understand data, really, right? So that's a huge part of what we do. And I think that, again, we kind of talked about why data projects fail previously. I think missing, sort of losing focus on some of those people aspects is why data projects fail a lot.
Oh, I agree. Well, John and myself, we got a couple. John helps me with a couple of large clients. I totally agree with you, and I find it quite fascinating, Nick, that you've got the internal side of it, but also I see the training side of it being used as a very strong marketing tool as well, because people are pre-investigating their options to a much higher level before they even approach a company to buy a product and service to a much higher level than they're used to. So offering free resources is partly linked to becoming a thought leader yourself or for your company. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I kind of joke that, when we're talking with potential customers, way before they even decide to work with us, we just give them free consulting, right? I mean, that's pretty much, what we do to get, say something smart to a customer, provide value in the initial conversations, and provide value in the thought leadership. I think, people want to hear that stuff. And I think sometimes people are afraid to kind of put their ideas out there. They think, oh, someone's going to steal my secret sauce or whatever it is. But I think, if you're opinionated, you have a point of view, you should share it and provide value. And whether it's the content that you're offering on your website, provide value in the conversations you have with folks, who might be customers later. Even, we've had so many times when a customer would call us up, we say something smart and we say, hey, maybe it's not the right time. Maybe it's not the right fit. A year later, they call us back and say, oh yeah, now we're ready, right? Now we're ready because they understand if you kind of what you're offering and what you're looking for, and say, hey, maybe this isn't the right fit. Then they understand what the right fit is. And maybe 6 months, a year down the line, it'll be the right time with the right fit. So just keeping an open mind and trying to provide value in all conversations that you have with folks.
Well, that's a problem for me then, not for you. But there we go. Thanks, Nick. It's been a great conversation. Thanks, John, for coming in and helping me be the co-host. We'll be back next week we got some fantastic guests coming up in the next couple of months. I'm amazed at the quality of people that have agreed to come on this show. Must be doing something right. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.